if you're here, that means that you love reading, and that also means that you've got a librarian who is amazing at getting the right books in your hands, and you love books, and you participate in the Sequoyah Award, and we're just thrilled to have you watching today. If you'd like to send a question to any of our authors, you can, if you have a way to send it to your librarian, that's one option, or you can use Twitter and hashtag Sequoyah 2020, and we will be checking that while the authors are here, and we will try to get your questions on. We'll also be giving away prizes, and your questions may make you eligible for the prize. All right, Oklahoma librarian teacher friends, how are you doing? Anybody want to say anything before we get started?
Hi, everybody.
Neal Shusterman is here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. What an honor.
This is your
third here with all of you.
Third time to win. That's just amazing.
It is quite an accomplishment, and I'm very proud and honored.
Well, we've met before. I'm Kenneth. This is Kyle with the balloons. And these are all of our Oklahoma library friends, and we are honored to have you. Neal is no stranger to the Sequoyah. He's had 10 books nominated, going all the way back to What Daddy Did in 1994, which he won with. And Neal, just, you know, life has changed in those past, 16 years?
Don't even remind me how long that is.
26 years, I think.
Yeah.
So
I like 16 better.
Between wins, a lot has changed. How have you changed? How has your writing changed over the last 26 years?
You know, I think I've gotten more interested in posing questions, you know, trying to get, you know, deeper philosophical questions in the things that I write. I think there's always that, you know, I want to tell a good story, but for me, what's most important is telling a story that matters. And I think, you know, that evolved as when I wrote What Daddy Did, I was in my late 20s, 27, 28, I believe. And I think I've grown a lot since then. Not that I don't enjoy the book. The book is, you know, I have a lot of warm feelings for the book, but I feel as a writer that I've evolved and I continue to evolve.
Great. And you also have an offspring who is writing with you. I mean, Jared is also the co-author of this book. How did that develop? And, you know, what was that experience like writing with your son?
Well, it started with a short story that we wrote together that's in the short story collection called Unbound, which are short stories within the unwind world. And about half the stories I wrote alone, but the other half of them I co-wrote. And I brought my son Jared and also my son Brendan on to co-write a story with me. And well, Brendan's story was fantastic. Jared's story was the publisher's favorite. And so I asked them if we might be able to write a book together, because it was such a great experience working on that story. And they said, well, yeah, if you come up with an idea that we like. And so we were actually stuck in traffic in Los Angeles when we were trying to think of it, when we were talking about disasters, and how whenever there is some sort of disaster, the first thing that happens is the roads get clogged and it makes it impossible to get out. And then we just started talking about different things that happen in California, from earthquakes, and we started to talk about the drought and how it's been going on for years. Everybody knows California is going to run out of water. It's only a matter of time, and yet no one really is prepared for it. It's one of those things that nobody takes seriously because it's just always there. Yeah, we have to conserve. We're running out of water. What happens when it actually occurs? And so we started to do some research on that and realized that it is a disaster waiting to happen. And we decided to write about that.
Well, I know that that concept is no stranger to the Sequoyah. Mindy McGinnis had something called Not a Drop to Drink, which was a similar topic. And so, you know, when we think about those things, I mean, we're going through a crazy time right now. Who would have ever thought that could happen? So it is definitely, you know, you said you write about things that, you know, there's questions that are in your mind. And, you know, I think kids really appreciate and love those types of books.
I have to say, I've had so many people contact me about the Costco scene in Dry. and how it was so prescient and how it was so much like what was really going on in Costco. And it was very creepy to sort of see that happening in real time when we had imagined this scene.
Well, a couple things for the kids that are watching. We're live streaming on YouTube, and all the students that love reading, you may recognize some of these titles as far as movies and TV: Goosebumps, Animorphs, and even Pixel Perfect, which is Disney. So Neal does not only just write books for YA, he also writes scripts for TV and movie. How's that going?
Things are going really well. Dry has been is under option with Paramount, and the script is being written by Jason Fuchs, who wrote Wonder Woman. He is off on his revision right now. The studio just re-optioned the book, and so it's moving forward. And we're waiting for just that slow process of how Hollywood works. Scythe is in development with Universal. Bruiser is in development with Sony. Challenger Deep is in development with Disney Plus. And I have a new book that isn't even out yet that is called Game Changer that is in development with Netflix as a series. So the book will come out, and hopefully the series will come out within a few months after the book. So there's a lot of great things happening. And that one I'm co-writing the script on with Brian Yorkie, who is the creative force behind bringing 13 Reasons Why to Netflix.
Well, how impressive is that? The book hasn't even come out. It's not due out till what, September, October, and they're already doing a Netflix show.
February, yes. It was originally supposed to be September, but it took a while to get it done, so it's moved to February.
Okay. Well, I think I've hogged a lot of the airtime. There's still have about 12 minutes left with you. Is there anyone who brought questions from a student, or do you have your own questions for Neal right now? Maybe comments about some of his books that have been on the Sequoyah over the years. Don't be shy. Unmute yourself and speak up.
Happy to talk about anything. Talk about the question that I didn't finish answering was, how was it like working with Jared on Dry? It was really a fantastic experience. Sometimes when writers collaborate, one writer will take one part of the story, another one will take another, or do different voices. What we did was we developed the idea together. We worked out all the beats of what needed to happen, and then the book is told from 4 different first-person points of view primarily, and rather than dividing that up, I started with Alyssa, and then Jared started with Kelton, and then we switched. And so once the voice was set, either one of us was able to write within that voice, and we kept going back and forth to the point that when we were done, it was hard to remember who wrote what. And so our voices really matched, and he was really professional to work with. And we're working on a new one as well. It's not a sequel, but it's another standalone book that we're almost done with.
Hi, Neal. My name is Lisa Myers, and I'm actually an elementary librarian, but I have a student watching, and he wants to know how many books you have written.
How many books have I written? I have written 54. Published 54, but that also includes, the short story collections and novelizations of X-Files that I did back in the 90s, and 2 hygiene books that I was hired to write at the very beginning of my career. So when you put them all together, that comes out to be 54. But in terms of actual novels, it's 36.
And, how did you have you always been a writer from the time you got out of college? Did you transfer from another career? And do you have any messages for the kids watching about, what they might do if they're interested in writing?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer. I really identified as a writer when I was in high school. I had a great 9th grade English teacher who challenged me to write a story a month that entire year. And when I went to college, I went to University of California, Irvine, UCI. And when I was there, I majored in psychology and in theater because I was very interested in the way the mind worked, and I loved theater. And so, but I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So I approached writing from this sort of theatrical and psychological standpoint. I was able to get my first book deal about 6 months out of college. And so for my pretty much entire adult life, I'd been doing this. And so that's, I consider myself very lucky to have been able to break into writing that early. In terms of what I would look to offer students, I would say, students that are interested in writing, you have to write. You just have to do it. And don't be afraid. Everybody gets critiqued. Critique is one of the most important things, which is why revision is so important. Nothing is ever done the first time you write it. You should never expect it to be. If you want to be a writer, you should be a reader. And don't just read one genre. Read outside of your comfort zone and write outside of your comfort zone. Try all different kinds of things to read and to write. That's how you become a well-rounded writer. That's how you grow in the craft.
And how do you feel with your son coming along as a writer too? How does that make you feel as a dad?
It makes me feel very proud. It's really, for me, this is the closest thing I have to a family business, and to see, my kids following in my footsteps, in a sense, is very gratifying. So, I have both my sons are writers. My daughter Joelle is working on a novel. My daughter Erin is an artist, and she's going to she's at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, and she's doing amazing artwork, and maybe someday we'll do a graphic novel together. So it's really wonderful to have creative kids who are just wonderful to watch them grow and see them flower as creative people.
It sounds like you've done a great job in keeping them creative and stirring that passion in them.
Well, it's their passion. I let them run with it.
I'm curious as to your inspiration for the Unwind novels.
Excuse me, what was that?
I am curious to your inspiration for Unwind novels. Unwind.
Unwind, it was originally just going to be one book. I never really planned to turn it into a series, so that's why there's 4 years in between the first book and the rest of them. It really came from several different places. There was an article about teenagers in England that were out of control, and it was, the government had kind of overreacted to these teens being out of control and clamped down on them, all of these, laws and curfews. And that just made the situation worse because the kids just rebelled against it. And there were actually people who were saying, if we want to solve this problem, get rid of these kids. Pass a law that allows us to do away with the teenagers that nobody wants. That's how we'll solve the problem. And I started to think, what if society actually made that decision? Would people actually do it because an authority figure said that it was okay? And when you look throughout history, when people have been given permission by an authority to do terrible things, people will take advantage of it. So that was in the back of my mind. And then I saw this article on transplant technology and how they're saying that they'll be able to use 100% of a transplanted body, and of a body in transplant, of a donated body. And I got to thinking, well, what if those kids that nobody wants, what if they use 100% of them in transplant? And that sort of becomes society's moral and ethical loophole. So people can say, oh, we're not killing these kids. We're just putting them into a divided state. They're still alive, just in a different way. And I started thinking of all the ethical implications of that, and how so many times when you end up with areas where you can, manipulate the ethics, people will move towards whatever is most convenient for them. And, I thought that was, an interesting approach to posing that question about how society makes choices. I mean, we can look at what's happening now when it comes to, ethically manipulating your choices for what suits you. When we talk about all the people who are protesting social distancing. I mean, this is very clearly a serious problem that we need to take care of, but people are finding all of these excuses not to do it and all of these reasons to fight against it when it is extremely dangerous to do so. So, when it comes to ethical and moral issues, I think people start to can become very selfish and manipulate their own morality to fit what suits them. And that's one of the issues that was explored in Unwind.
It was well done, very well done. I enjoyed it so much.
Of all of your characters, which one is the most memorable?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Oh, there's so many characters that I love, and that doesn't necessarily mean the characters that I like. It doesn't even mean the heroes. There's characters that I love that were secondary characters, like Sci-Fi and Unwind. There's the characters in Scythe, Scythe Faraday and Scythe Curie. I love the two of them. My favorite antagonist, my favorite villain is Mary Hightower from Everlost. She's just so self-righteous and thinks that everything what she's thinking is the perfect righteous thing to do. But what she really wants to do is destroy the world, and she has every rationalization as to why that is the right thing. So there's so many fun characters that I've got to spend time with. Scary ones too.
We interviewed Dan Gemeinhardt. He's a middle grade author. He was on yesterday, and he talked about how when he finished a book, he missed those characters.
Yeah, you do.
Separation anxiety or whatever with them.
Oh, one more character I should have mentioned. Ansi Bonanno in The Schwa was here. He was a character who really came to life. Writing those stories was like just listening to him talk in my ear. He felt so real.
So you've been to Oklahoma, I know, several times over the years. I don't know how many, but I know of at least probably 3 or 4 that I know of for sure.
Well, I've been there at least 10 times. I was there. It was one of my last stops before the lockdown. I was in Norman and Edmond.
Mm-hmm. So my question is, when you come to Oklahoma, is there anything that you can expect when you come to Oklahoma, or something when you come to Oklahoma that you look forward that that you're going to get that maybe you get in Oklahoma and no place else? Sorry to put you on the spot here.
Oklahoma, one of my first school visits was a small town in Oklahoma. I don't even remember where in Oklahoma it is. I think it's north of Tulsa, a small town called Oologah. Mm-hmm. And this was back in the 90s. Mid-90s, and I had all of these letters, fan mail from this one little town in Oklahoma. And so I decided I'm going to go visit them. And they just rolled out the red carpet, and I felt so appreciated. And I mean, that's really, that visit to Oologah started, which is Will Rogers' hometown, I believe, as I recall. It really started my school visits and wanting to, connect with readers and students and educators. So I always know whenever I go to Oklahoma, I'm always going to have a very warm welcome.
And Missy Boyd's in here. She was at Oologah for several years, and so she can probably attest to the hometown hospitality that exists there.
I'm so sad I wasn't there when you came, but I was the librarian for 3rd through 8th for about 5 years, and Oologah families love reading, love schools, love books. I was always amazed. Such a little town, and I would make $10,000 at book fairs every time.
That's great.
So I'm sure they loved having you.
It was a great experience. And another small town that I had visited a couple of times that I had the same experience with was Ada. Mm-hmm. Ada, Oklahoma. I ended up being there for their Halloween parade. And so I was the grandmaster. I was the grandmaster of the Halloween parade. I sat on the float. I waved like a fake bloody hand for their, with a royal wave with a fake bloody hand. And they gave me the key to the city that I still have in a display case. So I've had a lot of great experiences in Oklahoma.
Well, I don't know if you're following the chat, but Shanna Fields from Guthrie just said that she had an experience while she was reading Dry, and they stopped for snacks on a trip, and she thought people were looking at her funny because they wanted her water bottle. She told her husband that, and he said he felt the same thing. They were listening to the audio on the trip. So apparently in Dry and all your, you create this world that people just feel like they're in, and it's just really a special talent.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to give away a copy of this, and we don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have a special trivia question you could ask that people could answer in order to win this copy?
Oh, a special trivia question from Dry?
Sure.
Or
what is Henry's real last name?
Oh, good. That sounds really tough, actually. Let's see. Henry's last name. We're looking in the chat to see who answers first. If you're on Twitter, you can use Sequoyah 2020 hashtag. We'll give them 10 more seconds and we'll try another one. Or we can ask another question based on your history on the Sequoyah. Okay, no one got it. Do you want to reveal the answer? Or should they?
No, because it would be a spoiler. After I said it, I realized, well, it's just kind of a spoiler. It's kind of a funny Easter egg at the end. Okay, what is the name of Alyssa and Garrett's dog?
Maybe somebody can get that. All right, we'll give him a few more seconds, and then I'll come up with one from the Sequoyah history.
Okay.
Stumpers here.
No one got it.
I think it's there. I think it's like right there on the first page.
Here's
Kingston.
Is that right?
Yes.
Shanna Fields from Guthrie wins a copy of that. Let's give away one. Let's give away one more. I've got a copy of Bruiser here, and here's the question. Neal Shusterman has won the Sequoyah Award 3 times. If you'll type in the chat, besides Dry, the other 2 that he's won for, then you can win. The other 2 books that Neal has won the Sequoyah Award for. One was in 2010 and one was in 1994. I see Unwind, but you need a matching one. Somebody needs to do both. Carol Burns got Bruiser and Unwind. No, that's not it.
Bruiser was nominated, I think.
Heather Shuck was the first one to write the 2 that were the winner. Heather Shuck wins. All right, congratulations. Make sure y'all send us your mailing address and remind us what you won to brownbrothersbooks@gmail.com. Neal, this has been such an honor for you to share your time with us. Is there anyone else that has a question or a comment for the great Neal Shusterman?
Anybody?
Quiet group for Friday.
Develop your character.
Neal.
Oh.
Hello.
I'm not a librarian, I'm a student. I'm the daughter of a librarian. But Neal, how do you develop your characters?
You know, the characters grow. They start with an idea, and as I start to get to know them, they grow. I fill in their backstory, and so by the time I get to the end of the first draft, I really know those characters really well. So it's in the revision that they really come to life.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Neal, for answering. I'm her mom, and so she jumped on the Zoom call with me because Kyle and Kenneth are totally awesome. And so,
Mom, you're embarrassing me.
I like your nails.
Thank you. I did them all myself.
I'm super glad you're here, but I have an entire 2 whole sections for you. So keep writing, because I would like to have an entire Neal Shusterman wall when I'm finished.
Okay. I will keep it up as long as I can.
So yeah, I'm gonna have a brand new school, so I'm excited. I'm gonna make a whole section just for you, because all of those books.
Thank you.
So.
And we have several elementary librarians who've never read your books. They're even commenting about that in the chat, and they're ready to start digging through your catalog. So,
for elementary, I would suggest the Chihuahuas here and Tesla's Attic, the Accelerati trilogy. Tesla's Attic, Hawking's Hallway, and Edison's Alley.
Terrific. Okay. Well, we've taken up enough of your time. Thank you again for being here. Congratulations on your 3rd Sequoyah win. And
thank you.
We hope to see
you're very welcome.
We hope to see your other books on the list, and we hope to see you in Oklahoma again.
I hope to be back soon.
All right. Very best wishes to you and your family. Tell Jared hi for us.
I will. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I think we've got some new Neal Shusterman fans, if you didn't know him already.
That was great. He was fantastic.
Could one of you tell me again the elementary level books that he recommended?
The Schwa
was here, and Tesla's Attic, and what was
Tesla's Attic? Tesla's Attic.
Is that ATTIC?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
As in the upper floor of a home?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I read on a website that on his website that they're developing some kind of a TV or movie with that as well. So, you know, I don't know how he has time to do anything but write, because he just churns them out big time.
Volume 2 of that is called Edison's Alley. And volume 3 is Hawking's Hallway.
And they're great for like 4th grade through 6th or 7th. I have them in my middle school, but 4th and 5th grade would be great also. It's a great fantasy series, and they create all these things in the attic, and it's a great series.
All right. Well, we're just a few minutes away from Susan Hood being here, unless she snuck in without us seeing her. Susan, are you here? There's so many pages to look through because y'all are so supportive and you're all here tonight. We have 3 pages I have to look through. We've almost broken our record for Ruta and Jenny's night. We're at 64, and I think we had 65 that night.
That's cool. Hey, Kyle, I like the balloon background. That's pretty sweet, dude.
Oh, thank you. I even have a COVID-19 background if anybody wants to really, you know.
Oh, dear.
It's even animated.
Oh, Kenneth, I love the winter book too background. You guys are just the best.
I'm so awesome. So happy to be here.
Glad you're here. Well, before Susan gets here, we just want to remind, we have several people watch it on YouTube. I think last we checked, we were somewhere in the 20s, but I think at 4:30, we're going to have more elementary kids show up. So we just want to welcome any students who are watching. We want to let you know that if you want to send questions to us, we're checking our Twitter account for hashtag Sequoyah 2020, no spaces in that. If you want to send a question to Susan Hood, we've already had a few questions submitted from students in Bartlesville. And raise your hand if you've brought questions from your students today as well.
Michelle Schuster from Moore has. Let's see. A lot of people are turned off. Maybe they'll turn back on. It's a great crowd. So Susan Hood, in case y'all missed it, she actually joined us. We had a Sequoyah celebration night. Friday nights is kind of our night that we have a lot of different authors on. I know we're already filling up next Friday night, but she's already been on, and she was fantastic and very fascinating. But if you had a favorite question that was asked and you would like everybody to hear that answer to that question again, feel free, even if it was asked in the last session. Go ahead. Remember, there's a lot of new faces here, and there'll be a lot of people watching on YouTube. Kenneth, who do we have lined up for next Friday night right now? I know we're still working on that.
Let's just go over next week. Monday is open, but we finally got in touch with Mark Iacolina, who wrote Did You Eat the Parakeet? He has not gotten back to us. We offered him the 4th or the 13th. Tuesday and Thursday are Sequoyah days. We have, is it Angela Cervantes? I just have Cervantes written here. She wrote Letty Out Loud. It's on the new Sequoyah list. And Cynthia Lord will be here Thursday. Tammy Sauer, Oklahoma superstar, will be here Wednesday for Redbud. But next Friday, we've already have 2 previous Sequoyah winners. YA author Mindy McGinnis, who won for Female of the Species. She was also on for Not a Drop to Drink. Lois Ruby, author of Doll Graveyard, isn't that the name of it? Yes. She'll be here. And then Melissa Savage, who didn't win, but she was on the list, and she has a new book that's come out recently. And so
Wendelin Van Dronen as well. Yeah. Hasn't she confirmed for next Friday?
And will also be here that night. We've also asked Jennifer Nielsen, who is a Sequoyah winner, and Betty Burney, the Humphrey author. So we haven't heard back from those 2, but we think we might get them. We'll keep trying. We'll try to have 5 or 6 each Friday night for as long as our friends show up and watch.
All right. Nope. Susan Hood on here by chance? She's probably going to jump right on it.
There she is. She's here. Hello, Susan. We have to unmute her, Kyle.
I got to find her.
She is.
There she is. There she is.
Hello, Susan. Congratulations and welcome to our celebration.
Thank you so much. I was so thrilled. I just can't even tell you how much that meant to me. Just incredible.
Great. Well, you were so kind to come see us a couple of weeks ago on when the Sequoyah votes were due, and here you are again. I don't know what you were thinking that night, but did you think you had a pretty good shot?
I had no clue whatsoever because you guys picked so many amazing books. I mean, I was completely bowled over. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, again, congratulations. We're honored to have you. There's a lot of questions that students and librarians and teachers are wanting to ask you tonight, so I'm not going to hog the show. So I'm going to turn it over to, let me just read you a couple questions that were submitted to me yesterday from Wayside Elementary in Bartlesville. Third grader Payson asked, is all of the story real or is some of it made up?
That's a really good question. I started out writing this book as nonfiction because I thought the true story was so amazing. And then I started to think that I felt like young readers like to be inside the head of the main character. So I switched it to historical fiction for that reason. But all the people are real people. All the big events that happen are all true. A lot of the dialogue is documented in the back of the book. So it's as close to nonfiction as I could make it. But obviously, it's told from the point of view of Ken Sparks, and I'm not Ken Sparks. So I basically told his story after meeting him. I went to England and met with him for 2 days and did extensive interviews. So it's a little bit of a hybrid in that respect because technically it's historical fiction, but unlike other historical fiction, I didn't make up characters. I didn't make up events. They're all true. So it's a little bit of both.
And you touched on me. Go ahead, please.
I was going to ask, how does it compare to the other book that's currently out, Torpedoed?
Torpedoed? Torpedoed is straight nonfiction. It's about the whole ship, so it's a much bigger story, and it has information about many, many people on board the ship. Whereas I thought for young readers, I wanted to focus on one boy, one lifeboat, and sort of make it a smaller story in scope so that I could focus on those people.
Oh, I think it helped for the students to connect with it.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
And I found that girls enjoyed it as much as boys. It wasn't, typically the boys went to it very quickly, but the girls loved it too.
Yeah, I've been finding that in my school visits too, which is such a thrill to me. I'm so happy about that.
And following up on Ken Sparks, Haley, a fifth grader from Wayside in Bartlesville, asked, how did you meet Ken Sparks? And when you met him, what made you inspired to write the book? And you might have answered that a little bit already, but if you don't mind addressing those two.
Oh, sure. So I found the story of the city of Benares in my mother-in-law's childhood letters. She was British and she was an evacuee herself. So when the Blitz was happening, her parents and her school evacuated the entire school to Canada. So thankfully for me and my whole family, she made it. And she was over in Canada and she was reading the news. So she would hear about the SS Volendam that was torpedoed, the SS City of Benares. So I got the idea from her. And then as I did more research, I discovered that Ken Sparks and the other boys were still alive. And they were all in England and they were all in their 80s and 90s. And I had absolutely no idea how to find them. And I always tell kids when I go to school visits, don't be afraid to ask for help. So I asked everybody I knew, how in the world would you find someone in England? And one of my friends said, let me look into this. I'm really good with real estate records. And she actually found his address and his phone number. And she called me up and told me, but she said, that's the good news. The bad news is he moved 2 years ago. I was like, oh, so close. But she suggested I call the number and she thought maybe they would know where he went. And I immediately hung up the phone with her, called this number, and a man answered, and I said, I'm looking for a man named Ken Sparks. I'd like to interview him for this book. And he said, well, my name is Ken Sparks. And I almost fell on the floor. I was so unprepared to talk to him, but he was so nice. And he said, basically, he said, come on over anytime, lovey. I was like, okay. So my husband and I went over to England and stayed in a hotel and went and visited him in his home for 2 days and just talked to him like all day long and took copious notes and recorded the whole thing. And he actually had a trunk filled with memorabilia. And he said, go look in that trunk. And I was like, okay. And I opened it up and it was all newspaper clippings and magazine articles and the silver watch that the neighbors had given him when he got home. And I was like, oh my gosh, could I copy some of this stuff? And he said, sure, take it all. So I got photos of a lot of his family. He shared those with me. I took a photo of the watch. And he was such a great guy. He was really funny and really bright, and he remembered everything, but he was 88 years old. He was near blind and on a walker. His wife was in a nursing home, and then he died 2 months later. So it was just an incredibly fortunate thing that I actually got to meet him and talk to him.
Does anyone have questions they brought from their students about Lifeboat 12 or anything else?
I have a question. I'm a librarian in Moore at Kingsgate Elementary, and this is from one of our 4th grade students. They asked, how long did it take you to write Lifeboat 12?
It took about 3 years. I think it would have taken 2.5, except that my editor left the company in the middle. He got a big new job elsewhere. And so we had to wait till they hired a new editor. So I had 2 different editors on the book. So I would say really 2.5 years, but because of that, it took about 3. So it was about, I would say, a year of research and then a year of writing and revising, and then the publisher needs time to print it and things get in the stores. So it takes a long time, which is always surprising, I think, to kids that picture books also take 2 to 3 years to create. I kind of thought this might be faster because there was no art involved, but no.
Did you know from the beginning that you would do it in the format you did, the verse format?
No, I had no idea. I think that kind of came from my picture book background because I'm so used to condensing things and doing very spare writing for picture books. And I also have written a lot of picture books in rhyme and in poetry. So it seemed kind of like a fun way to tell the story. And I really feel like all that white space helps kids deal with traumatic subjects. It's a little bit of breathing room and insulation. So I kind of fell into it, but the more I did it, the more I love doing it. I love wordplay and I love fooling around with the font and all that. So I think it really came from being a picture book person though.
Hi, my name is Lisa Myers, and I wanted to ask you on, when we did your Sequoyah chat, you mentioned that you were really interested in World War II. Do you have ideas for new books that we can look forward to? Because I have several students that love that genre.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that because yes, indeed, I am working on 2 middle grade books that are World War II books. Both of them feature a girl character this time. And then I actually have a very, very interesting angle for a picture book that's historical fiction as well. So I think the picture book is going to come first, but I'm working with a co-author on one of the middle grade books who is the son of this woman. So it should be really great. We're in the sort of research stage at the moment. So, but I'm hoping to get all those at least first draft written in the next couple of months. So yes, the answer is yes.
Are they going to be in verse also?
I think so. I'm not absolutely certain. I wrote a draft of sample pages for one of them as straight nonfiction and the other one in verse. And then reading the 2 of them together, I just felt like the verse one was working so much better. And I think I have more fun doing it that way. So I think they're both going to be in verse. But who knows?
Back last fall, Susan was kind enough to send us, and I don't know what these are called, Susan, but they're a beautiful copy of your cover, and you had signed them and sent them to us.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And that was so nice of you. We gave away a lot of them at the conference, but we found a few extras today. And so any of the students, if you've read a question for a student, we're going to send you that for that student. So make
Oh,
sure
that's fabulous.
if
Let
you
me know if you need more, because I have more.
Oh, great. Well, if you have a student that you have brought a question for, please make sure you speak up, and we'll be able to send you one of those for a prize.
I also, if you'd prefer, I also have book plates that I could sign for them. So let me know which you'd prefer.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Susan,
no problem.
I did
Yes.
have a student who asked me if you would, his name is Caleb, and he wants to know if you would talk a little bit more about why you wrote Lifeboat 12. I know you mentioned your mother-in-law's letters, but is there another part to that story?
I just fell in love with the story. I really was kind of entranced that this is a true World War II story in which the kid, the 13-year-old boy, is truly the hero who saved all 46 people on board that lifeboat. And those kind of stories are sort of few and far between. And I'm a big believer in the power of kids and what they can accomplish and how brave they can be. So I think that's why I kind of fell in love with the story. And ever since I wrote Ada's Violin, which I don't know if you guys know that book, it's a nonfiction story that's about a young girl who lives in Paraguay, and she lives on a landfill. And they created musical instruments out of the trash and formed an orchestra. And they are playing Bach and Beethoven and Mozart on instruments that are made out of paint cans and forks and pipes and all sorts of stuff that they find in the landfill. So it's kind of amazing resilience and ingenuity. And they're traveling the world now and playing for kings and queens and the Pope. And if you heard them, you would never know it's trash instruments. It sounds like the real thing. So ever since I did that book, I've sort of fallen in love with stories, especially true stories that feature a real kid. And I think, I did Shaking Things Up about young women who've changed the world. And my new book that's coming out next February it's called The Last Straw. It's about plastic pollution and the amazing things the kids around the world are doing about it. It's pretty horrifying, when you really dig into the facts about plastic and how it's piling up on this earth. And I started to get kind of depressed writing the book until I started to find these kids who are going around. Like the kid who started the Ban the Straw movement was 9 years old. He started in Vermont, and he went into his local cafe and said, "You know what? I don't need a straw. Why are you giving me a straw?" And the guy said, I could save money if I don't give out straws. And so this kid started this whole movement that now, Starbucks and Marriott and Disney are now drastically reducing straw usage. So those kind of stories I just love. So that's kind of where I am with all my books right at the moment.
Susan, I have not a question, but a compliment from a student who is a very avid reader, and he read all 15 Sequoyah books. There was a major incentive, but I had a couple of students who did it. And I know that he voted for your book because he insisted on telling everyone, even though we were supposed to be very private about it. But it has actually inspired him to become a writer, and he's very interested in the writing process now. So
that is so fabulous.
He just used to use reading as a source of escape, but he now is very interested in providing that opportunity for other kids. So I wanted to let you know that.
Cool. Yay. Thank you for telling me that. That's awesome. Well, I also have to give all of you a compliment, because I know these days are really hard when everybody's trying to do this distance, virtual learning over the computer and everything. And I have such respect for teachers and librarians who just jump into the fray and just deal with it. So thank you to all of you for what you're doing.
Well, Susan, I don't know if you know, but we have over 60 students who love reading and love your book, who are watching on YouTube. Is there anything you'd like to say to those kiddos? I think they're mostly 3rd through 5th grade. Do you have anything that you like when you do school visits, or some message that you would like to share with them?
Well, I'm so proud of you for all the reading you're doing. And thank you so much for voting for Lifeboat 12. It's really a thrill to me. I don't know if you know this, but this was my very first middle grade book. And you've inspired me to keep going and try to write another one. And I'm also very proud of all the kids that are dealing with school over the internet, and all that is just fabulous. So keep up the good work and keep reading. Congratulations, especially to all those kids that read all the books. That's fantastic.
Yes, I know that all of our friends in this room, they do such great promotions for the Sequoyah. They really pour, their own money, they pour their heart and soul into it, and they give really neat prizes for kids that read 10 or 15 or, all the books. And so we just are very thankful to them with all the things that they give and they give and they give to try to encourage those kids to read. And, kudos to the Sequoyah committee. They're picking out some amazing books, and the kids are
really
willing to read them.
They are.
And again, there's a ton of books that are great on this list, and here's one. So that's really cool.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
We have time for a couple more questions before Susan leaves us for the evening.
I have a question, Susan.
Yeah.
How long have you been a writer? Is this your main life, or?
It is right now. I became an editor right out of college, so I got a job at Scholastic book clubs. So I was working in the Seesaw book club. So it was kindergarten and 1st grade books, which was an amazing education for me, because my job was literally to read thousands of picture books, because we're getting them in from all different publishers and trying to decide what would go in the book club. Then after that, I worked for a teacher's magazine. I worked for Sesame Street for about 8 years in the book department. Then I was a freelance writer for a long time, always sort of doing children's books and writing for teachers and parents. So it was all sort of around educational publishing. And then I got a job, which was a fabulous job. I went into New York City 2 days a week, and I was the children's content director for Nick Jr. Family Magazine, which was a parenting magazine that had a children's magazine inside of it that would pull out. So I was in charge of the kids magazine, and that's where I got to meet amazing children's book authors and illustrators, because Viacom had money, so we could pay Maurice Sendak to do an original story for the magazine. So I got to meet him and Eric Carle and all the huge superstars of children's literature. And I was editing their stuff, but I learned a lot from them by seeing how they would attack a story and how they would present something. And all that time I had been freelance writing, but I started off writing like beginning readers and baby board books and ABC books and Sesame Street books. And I had a very healthy respect for how hard picture books are. So it took me until 2009 to attempt my first picture book. And then I fell completely in love with them, and I've written probably about 13. So I've always sort of been a writer, but in different genres. But I think I've got the best job in the world right now. Now I am the happiest I've ever been.
I found one more question from a student, and this is going back to Haley from Wayside. She asked, what part of the book was the hardest to write about when you were writing Lifeboat 12? Is there a part that gave you trouble?
Hardest to write about.
Maybe it was the most emotional. Maybe that could have been what Haley was getting at.
I used to laugh when I was writing the book, because a lot of it would make me cry. And I'd be sitting there all by myself typing. And then I just think about these real kids and their plight, and especially all the kids who died. You know, it was like the big story of the whole ship is a really, really tragic story. And, you know, I think out of the 90 evacuee children, only 13 survived. And there were whole families that went overboard, and a lot of the lifeboats would go down sort of like this and flip. And there was a huge storm. So there were all sorts of, 20-foot waves. So like whole families of 5 children would die instantly. So doing a lot of the research was really hard, because it was sort of unavoidable. It was just really tragic. But imagine me sitting there on my computer, typing away with tears just pouring down my face. My husband come in and go, "What's going on in here?" So, yeah, I think that's probably why I focused on Lifeboat 12, because it is a happier story of survival.
All right, any last questions? And just a reminder for Payson and Haley and the other 3, let's see, Michelle Schuster, Caleb for Lisa Myers, and Monica Gillespie will be sending you a signed, what do they call that?
Those were the book jackets, I guess.
Okay. They were a beautiful 6x7 or something.
Yeah.
Book jacket that are signed. So we'll be excited to send those out. Anybody else have a student that gave you a question? We can give you one of those for them too. Anybody?
I have a question, Susan.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to a student that might be interested in writing their own historical fiction?
Ooh, take very good notes. Because often you write something and you get it all done, and then you have to go back and say, where did I find that? So what I do is I write down the left-hand side of the page and write my notes about where I found each thing down the right-hand side of the page, right from the beginning, so that I don't have to go back and hunt and make sure that the quote is correct. And, I think a lot of kids especially feel like you can find everything on the internet. And I was shocked when I was researching this book that there's so much that was available about Lifeboat 12 and the SS City of Benares that is in documents that museums and archives don't have the time or the money to put online. So if you can possibly go to the places involved and interview the people, you'll find a lot more than what's online. So I guess those would be my 2 tips.
Awesome, thank you. Great advice.
Sure.
Well, this has been a real honor, and we just can't, thank you enough for writing Lifeboat 12, but also congratulate you for winning. And we're just so excited that you were able to come here today. There's so many kids that love your book. The people in this room love your book, and just thank you for being here with us today. Last chance for anybody to make a comment or question.
I just hope that you'll have the opportunity. Your award will be handed out a year from now at the Oklahoma Library Association, and we really hope that you'll be able to come in. It's a great celebration. A lot of the people here in this room will bring kids to come and see you. And so we really hope. That's one of the things that I think is so special about this. I don't know if you all know it, but like down in Texas, they have a great thing called the Texas Bluebonnet. But when the author comes in, the author comes and talks to all the adults, all the librarians and stuff. And I love the fact, I don't know how it's done in all the other states, but I love the fact that in Oklahoma that we invite the kids in to meet the author. So we hope that you'll come.
That's amazing. Well, it's on my calendar. So fingers crossed that we can all fly and meet at that point in time. But I'm definitely planning to come.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So thank you all. I really appreciate everything you do to connect kids and books. And Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you next spring.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We do have our next special guest in the house, Kenneth.
Well, wasn't Susan great? It was so exciting for her to win, and so many kids loved that book. And now we're going to transition to our next guest. Mr. Dan Gutman is in the house.
Hi.
Hello, Dan.
How you guys doing?
Great. We're so excited to have you. You know, Kyle and I have been doing this for a while. My first year doing this, I got a chance to meet you when you came to Oklahoma to win the award for $1 Million Shot. And I still remember being in awe. You were the first author that I ever, you know, met or cared about as a permabound book rep, and you just floored everybody. And so Kyle and I have been such a big fan of yours, and we just are so excited that you're here. We're excited for all your success, and we just think you're one of the nicest guys in the publishing world.
Oh, that's so nice of you guys to say. I feel like it's been forever since I saw you. But back in the day, I did a lot of school visits in Oklahoma, and I visited Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Norman, I remember. But it's been so long. I should come back as soon as we're all able to do this again.
Love that.
Well, for those of you that might not know, Dan has been nominated several times for the Sequoyah. Kid who ran for president was his first one back in '99. $1 Million Shot won in 2000. Jackie and Me, Satch and Me, and Hannes and Me were also nominated. So yes, there's Hannes and Me. So lots of success. And then it just, you know, I'm picking out books for a brand new school, and just the list of Dan Gutman books that I'm putting in that shopping cart to go into that brand new school. You've written just so many and so much success.
You are too kind, really.
So we're going to open this up. I'm not going to hog any more of the time, but there's a lot of fans here. People have brought questions from their own students and longtime Dan Gutman fans. So everybody just start asking away.
All the faces I see on the screen, are they all librarians? Are they all authors? Who are you all?
I should do a better job of introducing. These are all of our librarian teacher friends. Most are library media specialists. We also have a bunch of kids watching on a live stream on YouTube. And we have a few other guests in here, 1 or 2 students, I believe. And so they're all just very excited to see you.
Okay, well, I'll make sure not to pick my nose or anything like that.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
I have been teaching since, I don't know, 26 years, and I was at Putnam City Central Junior High back in, I'd say 1993 or 4, and you came and spoke to our school. And the one thing that always impresses me, and I still tell my kids today, I'm now in more, is how many rejection letters you got initially, but you kept writing and kept writing, and just how many books I currently have in my library of yours. So that's one thing that always impressed me, and I tell my kids to keep writing. You always get better. So thank you for your perseverance.
Yeah, I still deliver the same message when I visit schools, because you know, when I first wrote Hannes and Me, it's a baseball book about this kid who has the power to travel through time using a baseball card like a time machine. And this book was rejected by 10 different publishers over the course of 2 years. In fact, Scholastic rejected it twice, actually. They rejected it, and I made some changes based on their rejection letter, and I submitted it to them again, and they rejected it a second time. But I got my revenge on Scholastic because when the book eventually was published and became successful, they bought the rights to sell it at their book clubs and book fairs. So boo-boo on them. But I bring it to schools when I do my talks, because I think a lot of kids out there, they just assume that when they see, you know, actors or singers or athletes who are famous, they think that they never really struggled in their lives. And I want them to understand that, you know, you can encounter obstacles in your life and still be successful. So I still trot out the old rejection letters again, and I show them every time I visit a school. And I think, you know, kids get that message, and it's a good thing. Thanks, Cheryl, for asking.
I just have to tell you, I'm in Moore at Briarwood Elementary, and I have a locker, sports locker, and we have all our sports books in there. So you have a shelf of your own there. And then your weird school books are a really huge hit at my school. All the different series that you have, and the kids I can't keep them on the shelf. So I want you to know that they're very popular and very well read.
You know, the last time I visited Oklahoma, I don't think the My Weird School series even existed at that point, because I started it in 2004, and I had only been writing for older kids, like, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade mainly, and my daughter was in 2nd grade at the time, and I thought, gee, I'd like to write something for a younger audience, and my daughter was reading Junie B. Jones, and we both kind of thought, like, hey, there should be something like Junie B. Jones told by a boy. So I basically sort of reverse engineered Junie B. Jones. You know, I counted the number of pages, the number of chapters, the number of pictures, and so on. And I created this My Weird School series, which is about a school where all the grown-ups are insane and all the kids are relatively normal. This is the newest book. And it turned out to become the most successful thing I ever did. Now there's like 70 of these books now out. And this is what put my kids through college. And now my daughter, who was in 2nd grade when it started, now she's 24 years old, and she's actually living with us during the quarantine. She's in my office now. I don't have an office anymore. But I'm glad you guys like My Weird School. And by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but every day at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I do a My Weird read aloud, where I read a couple of chapters from a My Weird School book. So if your kids your Oklahoma kids are not in school right now, correct?
Right.
Okay. So if you could tell them, you know, they could watch me every day on Facebook. My read alouds are on Facebook Live, and then they're also on my website after I record them. It's just www.dangutman.com. So I read a book a week, a My Weird School book every week.
And I appreciate that you came out with the beginning readers of My Weird School too. Yes. My younger kids have really been excited about that.
Yeah, it's like a spin-off series for, you know, kindergarten and 1st graders. So My Weird School, I'd say, is perfect for 2nd grade and 3rd grade. But I found that even kids in 4th and 5th grade still enjoy them because they remember when they read them when they were younger. Thanks, you guys. Thanks to all of you for sharing my books with your students. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Krista Cheney. I teach at Brink Junior High, so I teach junior high 7th grade reading. Yeah. And your Honus and Me, I have multiple copies because that's my go-to book when I have a gentleman, especially that doesn't really want to read. They always want to finish your book and your books, and it's just such an honor to get to meet you and tell you that it is a major tool for me to then get them into other books that you've written, and then other books that that they will enjoy finishing as well. And I'm a great aunt. I have a great nephew that I bought him the series of The Weird School because I just really believe in your readability and your fantastic way to show the world. And my niece Emma right now is watching, and she just loves your Weird School books too. So thank you from our whole family in my classroom of kiddos for 25 years, giving us this delight of your reading, of your art, your talent.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say. You know, when I was a kid, I was not a big reader. I thought reading was boring and hard to do. And I think that's why I relate to kids who are reluctant readers today so well. And I know what bores those kids. And so when I'm working on one of my books, I'm sort of thinking in my head, okay, you know, is a kid going to find this fascinating? Is a kid going to find this boring? And I just, you know, I'm writing for myself basically. So a lot of kids who are in upper grades but might read on a lower grade level, they seem to enjoy my stuff. I hope that the kids who are really great readers enjoy them too, but I really aim them for the kids who are reluctant readers.
Well, and yes, because my niece Emma, who's watching, she reads all the way up to the, almost the high school Sequoyah list, but she still goes back to yours for such great enjoyment. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's for everyone.
The nice thing is that, like, when you can knock out a book in like a half an hour, reading a book in like a half an hour, it's really satisfying for a kid who's maybe in 4th or 5th grade. You don't have to spend a week or a month on a book. You can knock it out and feel a sense of accomplishment. And I think that's really good.
I'm going to jump in and say thank you. I'm almost in awe right now that I'm actually speaking to you, because my kids think you're a celebrity. They love your books. I recommend them all the time. And truly, you are one of the reasons that my son reads today. He's now 14, and I don't think he'd be a reader today if not for your weird school books, because for a while that was all he would read. But I also wanted to jump in and say thank you too, because when all of this pandemic stuff started, you were one of the first authors who came out and said, do you want to do read alouds? Yes, read my books to your kids, read, keep them reading. And so I want to say thank you, because you are obviously all about reading and getting those kids to enjoy. So thank you for what you do as well.
It's funny, when this whole lockdown thing started, a bunch of librarians and teachers emailed me and said, could we have permission to do read alouds of your books for our kids who are stuck at home? And it didn't even occur to me that you had to ask permission for that. I thought you could just do that as long as you weren't charging money for it, But apparently I guess it's a big copyright issue. So I just said, go ahead, do it all you want. I mean, that's only going to be good for all of us. And it was good that none of my publishers complained and said, oh no, you have to get written permission. So thank you all for doing the read alouds and tuning into mine as well.
Hi, I'm going to jump in. I'm Addison. I'm not a librarian, but I want to be an author, and I'm a student. And I just wanted to say I grew up on your books, and I really loved them. And I didn't even know that Junie B. Jones was kind of an inspiration for your books, because I read those too. I read every single one, and I read every single one of your books. I was like, in 2nd grade, I was like, all right, let's look for a thin book so I don't have to challenge myself that much. And so it took me like 2 weeks to read one, and it was like really an accomplishment, because I like also the cover art of it. I loved that too. That's what really got my attention on the book. So I'm just going to say thank you for helping me with my childhood.
The artist, the illustrator, his name is Jim Palat. He's wonderful. Jim and I have been doing the series now for 15 years, and we've only met once in person, actually. Jim lives in Arizona, and I live in New York City. So we communicate long distance by email mostly, and he always does a terrific job. And I think all the covers, they all they have a similar feel to them, but they also look different, each one. And so props to Jim, he's fantastic. And by the way, Addison, if you want to become an author someday,
oh yeah,
I think you should definitely check out My Weird Writing Tips.
Oh, I didn't even know you had that. So I feel bad for that.
It's not some boring writing book. It's a My Weird School book. So it's funny and silly and crazy, but it will also help you with your writing.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Hey, Dan, when did you say you do your read alouds again? Every day or once a week? What?
Every weekday at 2 p.m. East Coast time. But you can watch them anytime. You can watch them after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do them live at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. And every day, that's a big commitment. Wow.
It is. I didn't realize. I thought that I would just take me 20 minutes to do, but I spend a lot of time in preparation for it. I rehearse it a lot because I don't want to mess up. And it turns out that I spend like altogether about 3 hours a day on these things. But I get such a wonderful reaction from parents and teachers and kids and librarians that I'm just going to keep doing it as long as the kids are out of school.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Which probably means, I guess, is Oklahoma going to be out until the end of the school year, or have
Yes.
They made that decision already?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I'll be doing this through the middle of June at least. And maybe I'll keep doing it after that. I don't know.
Please do, at least once a week.
Well, I'm gonna, at some point I'll run out of My Weird School books to read.
Well, keep writing.
I've got a couple of comments, if it's okay.
Sure.
First of all, a friend of mine I used to teach with, his name is Dan Mills, and I believe he met you in Oklahoma, and you named an elementary school after him in one of your books. Was it the $1 Million Kick, maybe?
I don't remember, but that rings a bell. Yes.
Yeah, he told me that y'all got along on one of your trips here, and he said you said you were gonna do that. But here's my other thing. Did y'all know that Hannes and Me was actually made into kind of an after-school movie?
Don't see it. It's terrible.
I loved it, Dan. I saw it back in 2004. It was great.
Really? Okay.
It's called The Winning Season. And is there any chance that anybody could watch it if they wanted to? How do they find it? Is it even possible?
Well, I bought a copy on Amazon. So I think there's like used copies floating around. Yeah, they took Hannes and Me and they made it into a movie. I think it was TNT, if I'm not mistaken. It starred Matthew Modine and Kristen Davis. And basically, this was the first time anybody ever took one of my books and made it into a movie. And that was really exciting, of course. But as always is the case, Hollywood, changes everything. And they basically took a story about a kid and made it into an adult love story, which I was a little bit disappointed by. So you can always get a copy on Amazon if you want, but I'm hoping that someday somebody might make another movie about one of my books, or I think My Weird School would lend itself to a really cool animated TV show. But there's not much an author can do to make that happen. It's really up to somebody in Hollywood to discover a book and decide to make it into a movie or a TV show. So if any of you happen to know Steven Spielberg personally, slip him a copy of one of my books.
Hi, Dan. Are you working on any new projects right now?
I am, actually. Oh, thanks for asking. Actually, are you guys already familiar with another series I do called The Genius Files? This is a series I do about these two kids. Their names are Coke and Pepsi, actually. And they're traveling cross-country in an RV with their parents over summer vacation while these bad guys are chasing them the whole time. So there's 5 books in this series. They go all the way from California to Washington, D.C. and back again. I'm not sure if they're ever in Oklahoma. They must be in Oklahoma at some point. Anyway, that's one series I do. And I'm not sure if you're also familiar with another series I do called Flashback 4. Jennifer's nodding her head. Thank you. When I was a kid, my hobby was photography. I loved taking pictures, and I always wanted to do something with photography in my writing. So this is a series about these 4 kids who actually, they also travel through time, but they travel through time with a camera to try and photograph things that were never photographed before. For instance, Abraham Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address, and the Titanic sinking, and the Alexander Hamilton Burr duel. So this is sort of like a history series, if you want to put that as part of your curriculum. And finally, my next book coming out is, it's about Harry Houdini, actually, who kids are fascinated by. And Houdini actually lived 8 blocks from where I live today in New York City for the last 20 years of his life. And I wrote a story about Houdini, and it's about this kid who grows up in Houdini's house and communicates with Houdini after he died by text message. It's really crazy. But it won't be coming out till next year, so you'll have to wait a while for that one. Oh, one more thing. I know that graphic novels are getting to be really big around the country, and probably where you guys are too, certainly. And Jim and I are now working on the first My Weird School graphic novel, and it's going to be called Mr. Corbett is in Orbit. And the kids are going to take a tour of NASA and accidentally launch themselves into space. So you can look forward to that.
I had a question. You said that you weren't much of a reader when you were young. What got you interested in reading and in writing books?
Yeah. It was sports, actually. When I was, 8 or 9 years old, I started becoming a baseball fan. I spent a lot of time just having a catch with my dad in front of the house and watching baseball games on TV. And I wanted to know more about sports. And hey, when I was a kid, there was no such thing as the internet. If you wanted to learn something, you had to read about it. So I started reading the sports section of the newspaper, biographies of famous athletes, and that's what got me into reading. But I will say that even to this day, when I open up a book, if the author doesn't grab me on the first few pages, I just lose interest and close the book. So I'm still a reluctant reader today, unless the material is really captivating to me. So that's why I always have like a first sentence, a first paragraph that kind of just grabs you by the lapels, and hopefully even a kid that doesn't like to read is going to be captivated. Thanks, Kathy.
All right, we only have about 2 minutes left with Dan. I know that, Dan is a complete headliner. He could have been here for an hour, but I heard that you were cutting back a little bit on your screen time, and so we thought 20 minutes would be about right. And so anyway, anybody else have anything else they'd like to ask or say to Dan Gutman while he's here? And also, there's a whole lot of great comments in the chat, Dan. I don't know if you would like to save that. There's a way to save the chat.
Oh, I don't see the comments. So that I forgot to click on the chat button. I'm sorry.
They're still there.
Okay.
There's
will
a way
I be able to look at them after the fact?
Yes, over there on the right. Once you open the chat, there's a little box with 3 dots that'll allow you to save the chat. And if it doesn't work for you, we can email it to you.
Oh, now I see them all. Oh, gee, I'll read these all as soon as we hang up. But before I go, I just wanted to say that if anybody did have a question that they didn't get a chance to ask, shoot me an email. My address is simply dangut, DANGUT, 444@gmail.com.
And
you always lived in New York?
No, actually, when I visited Oklahoma, I was living in New Jersey, and I lived in New Jersey for most of my life, actually. And my wife and I, we met living in New York, but once we started a family, it's tough to raise kids in the city. So we moved to the suburbs of New Jersey for 26 years. And then when my daughter went off to college, my wife and I moved back to the city where we live today.
We want you to come back to Oklahoma to visit us.
Yes, we do.
I would like to.
Dan, are you working on any more sports books? I teach 4th grade and am a librarian, and I have a class of boys who just would probably read anything with the sports, especially baseball. This year in Oklahoma, it's unusual to have baseball lovers. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, have they all been through the Baseball Card Adventure series?
That's the first book I read by you, the Jackie and Me, and I just fell in love with it. We're out of school now and we haven't gotten to it, but I would love to hear if you're working on another one.
Actually, bad news. The Baseball Card Adventure series is done. I did 12 of them. I really enjoyed doing them, but I felt that I had told all the great baseball stories I had to tell, and so I stopped writing them and moved on to some other things. But there's also 5 of the $1 Million books. If you read the $1 Million Shot, if the kids have read the $1 Million Shot, there's also the $1 Million Kick, Putt, Strike, Goal, and Shot. That's 5, right? So there's one about golf. There's one about basketball. There's one about bowling. There's one about hockey, and there's one about what's the other one? I forgot.
Soccer.
Soccer, thank you. And that's the first, thank you. The $1 Million Kick was the first book I wrote in which the main character was a girl, actually. So you should check that one out. But actually right now I'm kind of, I guess, taking a little bit of hiatus from sports and writing about other things that interest me, like history and magic and technology and stuff like that.
Thank you. I didn't realize there were so many. So now I have a gold mine.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you so much for being here, Dan. Congratulations on all your success. I do have some signed copies that we saw some, like Emma and Meredith and Heather's daughter and Monica's daughter. We saw them in the screen, so we'll be sending y'all signed copies. Thank you again, Dan, so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this, and for sharing my books with all your students. And everybody, you know, read like crazy and wash your hands like crazy. And this thing will end at some point.
Yes, and make sure you read the chat. Thank
I
you.
will.
Thank you.
Thanks again, you guys.
Hi, Dan. Bye, Dan. Good to meet you, sort of.
Gutman. Wow.
Guys.
Thank you for being here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for our next guest, a former Sequoyah winner for Clementine. I know you all love that series, plus lots of other great books. Sara Pennypacker is here today. Hello, Sara.
Hi, and I'm sorry, my real name is on the screen there.
Okay.
Pennypacker was my real name, and it is no longer. That's why it says Sarah Young. Anyway, I should have predicted that. Hi. Hi to you all.
We're so glad you're here today. Is everything going okay in your world?
Yeah, everything's great. Everything's great. I feel extremely privileged that, you know, I got work, I've got safety and health, and everything's fine. So just really grateful there. How are you guys?
We're doing okay. We're okay. I mean, everybody else okay here today?
Is anyone open? Are any libraries open for any hours? Zero.
I just read that Pioneer, one of our major systems.
Well, I am so sorry. You have what?
I just read that Pioneer Library System, which is one of our big library systems, they plan on doing a partial opening, I think around the 18th of May. And I haven't seen anything yet from our other big systems, but I just read that today.
What a mess. I'm so sorry. I know what you do. I know about 1/10 of what you do. And I know how the kids need it. So I'm really sorry about that. But it will change. You're right, it will.
Our public library here in Lawton has just gone head over heels, offering electronic cards. You can call in, they'll give you a card. So they've really done a lot to help those kids that, you know, need a book.
Yep.
We are joined by a whole bunch of our library and teacher friends, and there's also some students watching online through a live stream on YouTube. So
are you there? I didn't know that. Hi.
So we're excited. Everyone's
excited. Readers. Hey, who did that? Who put Pennypacker on there?
That would be me.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, just tell us a little bit about your newest book, which is Here in the Real World.
Yeah, Here in the Real World. Yes. I don't even know where to start, but when I talk about it, because books have such a history, there's so many seeds to books, you know. But I did want to talk about two books that created Here in the Real World for me, or that helped seed it. And the first one I would want to mention is a long time ago, I was writing a series called Stuart's Cape, the Stuart series. And Stuart was a kid who worried a lot. So I would go into schools, and this was around 2000 that I was doing a lot of this. So going into schools, I wanted to get it right. I wanted to know what 2nd and 3rd grade kids worried about. So when I would give whatever presentation I'm doing, I would also say, you know, it's really hard if you worry about things, and sometimes you don't want to tell someone, and it can be better if you do tell someone. So I would always hand out quarter sheets of paper and say, I want you to know that if there's something you worry about that you can't tell someone, that you want to tell someone, you can write it or draw it for me, and know that I will read it and I will care about that. And you will have practiced, you know, telling someone what you're worried about. So I'm going along, and all the worries, they're 2nd, 3rd grade kids. They're what you would expect, and they're beautiful and heartbreaking and beautiful. And then 9/11 came. And every school I visited after that, I would do the same thing. And I'd say, if there's something you're worried about and you want to talk about, I'll read it. I'll look at your picture and I'll read it.
And from then on, I was getting pictures, of course, of airplanes hitting buildings and sentences like, I'm worried that my mom or my dad will have to jump. And I realized that this basic covenant that we'd had forever between us as a society and as parents and children had changed. It was broken. We could no longer protect kids from things they're not either, they don't have the resources or the maturity for. So that, I've been thinking about that for a very long time, about what it means, what are we supposed to do about the fact that you can't keep problems from kids. They don't even want you to. What can you do instead? And then the next book I would talk about would be packs, because now, several years ago, I started going out on the road with packs, which engendered, you know, a lot of conversations with older kids about refugees, for instance, and the problem of animals getting abandoned during war. And I was so blown away by the fact that the kids always said to me at the end of our discussion, what can we do about that? What should we do about that? Instead of saying, you know what, it's not my problem. I can't even vote. I didn't want a war. Nobody asked me. I'm a kid. They all would say, what are we supposed to do about it? So anyway, I thought a long time about what are we supposed to do about the fact that kids want to do something about stuff. So that's the long story behind Here in the Real World. I was always that kind of kid. I'm writing about myself. He's, I think he's an introvert. He's shy, but he's mostly an artist, and he likes to spend time alone. And the whole book basically is a whole bunch of people, including kids, running into problems and solving them from a lot of different points of view and a lot of different capabilities. So those are the things that I like talking about, is that, you know, kids want to know, what can we do? So throughout Here in the Real World, which I hope is a friendship story, and I hope that it's a welcoming story and a story about something that kids don't get to do much, which is hang out in abandoned places, which is something I always love to do. And I think kids don't get to do as much, have that freedom. But basically all the way down, you dig all the way down. I just wanted to say, well, here are a whole bunch of things you can do when you see a problem. You can you know, marshal your, whatever resources you have. We're not all Greta Thunberg, you know, and you can ask for help, or you can just take a tiny piece of it and address that. So before we go on, is there anyone here from Stillwater or Norman? Who's there? Did I meet you? Carol, have I met you?
Trying to look in here and see.
No, I'm a newbie.
Oh, you
to
are?
this. Yes. So
those were the last two places that I was in Oklahoma. So
I think
wonder if anyone
our
knows.
director of libraries was on the chat earlier, Stacy, but I can't see the chat.
So what kind of questions do you guys have?
I don't really have a question, just a thank you and gratitude for using your talent and gifts to bless children, and that you consider them a worthy audience for you to share your talent. So we just thank you for investing in them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's not at all even how I would describe it. I am so lucky. I'm so lucky I get to write anyway, but I feel really lucky that my books tend to end up with kids, because, you know, I did write one book for adults under that current name, Young. So I have a little bit of experience, and I will tell you that the writing is exactly the same. Putting a story together, all the things you have to think about, that's all the same. But once the book is out, it's completely different. Kids have this, for instance, they have an understanding of gift giving that adults don't have. Kids who love books feel that a book is a gift to them, and therefore they want to give a gift back, for instance. They're out of their minds unless they can tell the author or give the author something. That's a really nice thing. Kids care more about their books. The letters I get from kids show me that they're digging deeper into them, and they're making more connections between themselves and books than adults do. Kids are always looking to say where they are like that character, or how that affected them, or what they would do in that instance. So yeah, I'm the lucky one that stories come that happen to end up with kids.
Sarah, I'm the librarian at Central Middle School in Edmond, and we put PAX on our middle school Edmond Red Dirt list 2 years ago, and our students just couldn't get enough of that book. It just touched them in so many ways, as it did our teachers. It was our read aloud for the next year. And I just want to thank you for writing it. What a story. I mean, kids love animals, and the fact that they were separated, and then because of war, and the grandfather, and finding their way back, and then the ending was just such a discussion story that we could really talk and get into it, like you said, and that's what you write, and I thank you for doing that.
Well, I have a little thank you for you, for Oklahoma, for that story. I'll just tell you really quickly, for many years before I wrote PAX, I was attempting to write 2 books that were important to me. And one was about the effects of war on children and animals, and I couldn't write that book. I came to find out later, I just don't think I have the shoulders to carry that writing burden. And the other book I was trying to write was about how the amazing, I call it the radical empathy of children who are able to form bonds with animals, especially wild animals. That knocks me out. And I couldn't get a handle on that book. Then I went to Oklahoma, and it was 10 years ago now, and either in Norman or Stillwater, this thing happened. So I'm in between school presentations. A librarian came up to me, the school librarian said, "I loved your book, Sparrow Girl. It reminded me of I think it's the patient elephants or the faithful elephants." Anyway, I said, "I don't know that book. What's it about?" She said, "It's about elephants during World War II in the Tokyo Zoo, World War II." And then the next group of kids came in, and I couldn't talk to her anymore because she left, and then I left the school. And as I'm doing the rest of my school visits, I keep thinking, what? Animals commenting on war? And I realized by the end of my Oklahoma tour, I realized, I know why I can't write those stories. Each one needs the other. That's why it's a double narrative, and it has 2 themes. It's about the radical empathy that children can show to animals, and about the things that happen to animals and kids during war. So if I had not met that librarian, whom I wish I knew her name, I wouldn't have put that PAX together.
Well, you received an award, the Sid Fleischman Humor Award. Clementine is just so funny, and so is the whole series. Where did you get that humor from? Is that in your writing? Where did that come from?
Oh, I love humor best. And lately I've done some serious books, but I have just begun a funny book again. I will tell you that. That's the first time I've told anyone. But I need to tell you something about that award that might answer your question. So when I won that award, I was extremely proud. And of course, I called both my children and I said, "Oh, I won this award for this book." And it was my daughter, and she said, "Mom, get a grip. You didn't actually write Clementine. You just remembered us." Which was actually fair. I had just been through the experience of raising 2 kids through that age group. My kids are 2 years apart. And I just thought that they were hilarious. Not in a way that I'm laughing at them. I don't think we ever laugh at Clementine, but I'm laughing with them because they've got this fresh take. They know what time it is, and they're looking at things and they're saying it. So that's where it came from. It's just that voice that I just treasured in my own kids, and that they would let me access to be with them, you know.
Well, there's some really kind comments in the chat. I hope that, do you know how to save the chat or open the chat so you can see them?
I don't.
At the bottom of the page, I think there's a chat.
Oh, I see the green, oh no, orange. Oh, look at that.
There's some really wonderful comments about.
Oh, now I'm going to be really distracted.
About inference and other things. So you'll want to make sure you read that. There's a way to save it. There's a little button that has 3 dots that you can click on the
Oh, I do want to. Hey, can I address Melissa? Where's Melissa?
Please.
I'm here. Yeah, I wrote the comment about inference because to me that's a hard skill to explain.
Yeah.
And I love the opening of Clementine, where, you know, that line where she says, I mean, they should tell you not to answer the phone in the principal's office if that's a rule.
Yes.
I mean, to me, that's one of my most favorite lines in pretty much all of children's.
Thank you so much.
But to me, that's inference in a nutshell, is that you're not telling us that she cut her friend's hair, but
nope.
She says, her friend, her what's it, Margaret? I can't remember her name. Margaret's hair is not my fault, you know. So
and she looks okay without it.
And yeah, so I just
you have to infer what happened. That's exactly right. I want you to know how much I appreciate that. When I teach, and I'm teaching, it is inference, but the reason I'm teaching it is this: the books that we love are the ones that ask the reader to do the work in them. And for a Clementine book, that means that the funniest things I never write. I did not write that she cut Margaret's hair off. I did not ever say on that page that Margaret's mother was angry about that. And I did not ever say that Clementine picked up the phone in the principal's office. I asked the reader to infer it. And I do that for the saddest or the most moving things too, because I really think that's what we love as readers, is not to be told Clementine cut off Margaret's hair, but to go, huh, wait a minute. I made that joke. The reader made that joke, not the author. I think that's a pretty important thing. I'm so glad you noticed that.
Yeah, it's just one of my favorite openings, pretty much.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time. This time is
are we?
Fast.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Kelly Yang.
Hi, Kelly. We'll be right with you in just a second. We're finishing up with Sara Pennypacker. We'll be right with you. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Kelly.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, you're fine. Do y'all know each other?
No, not yet. We're not meeting anyone this year either, which is just one minor hardship.
So, Sara, again, we love your books. Does anyone else have a question or comment for Sara before she goes? And Sara, do you have a special trivia question? We've got 2 of your books that I can give away. If something from Clementine, maybe, or something else.
What? Wait, I have to come up with a question?
We have to. We can do it a different way. We've got backup.
Another way. I'm on the spot here.
What is your book birthday for your newest book? What was the book birthday?
February 4th. February 4th.
Okay. Who's got a birthday really close to February 4th? Like within 4 days of it.
Kristen Lassiter.
Sorry, March 5th is not very close. No.
February 4th.
Oh, is that
Kristen Lassiter said she is February 4th.
Okay. Kristen Lassiter.
Hey, Kristen. I hope to see you again in person next time. See you then.
We're very thankful that you're here, Sara. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for what you do. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that was a great time with Sara Pennypacker. And now our final guest of the day, last but definitely not least, a book that I have heard nothing but great things about. I read it, and so many people have read it. Kelly Yang is here, the author of Front Desk. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Thank you for being here, and congratulations on winning the Oklahoma Sequoyah Book Award.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored.
All right. Well, I don't have a whole lot to say, but there's a lot of people here that are anxious to talk to you. We also have students who are watching on YouTube live, so they might be sending in questions. And so just tell us a little bit about Front Desk and your experience with writing it, and experiences, you know, traveling and touring with it and all those things.
Yeah, so Front Desk is my debut novel. It's a middle grade novel about 10-year-old Mia Tang, who's a recent immigrant from China, and she manages the front desk of a motel while her parents clean the rooms. And she really wants to be able to win her own motel that she can run any way she wants. But it's going to take everything that she knows and a lot of trying with her writing in order to make that happen.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear stories about, these are all of our Oklahoma library friends and teachers, and they've got lots of stories they'd love to tell you and ask you questions. So we're going to turn it over to them.
Awesome.
We also got some good chat already.
Yay.
Do you know how to access the chat?
I'm doing it from my phone. And
Oh, okay. We'll make sure we get the chat to you at the end.
Okay, yeah, because I can see like some comments. I see, but I can't read all of. Oh wait, here we go.
No, it's okay. I just wanted you to know people were providing you with questions and stuff like that, and so you may want to go back at the end and read the comments that people are saying. You know. So.
Cool.
Well, I'll just go ahead and jump in. Shanna Fields from Guthrie said that she loves Front Desk, and every student she's given it to has loved it, and she chose it for her first book club because of that, and that it was a nominee. Super fun.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you guys, it resonated with you guys, that the kids really liked it. I have a lot of questions from kids that I always put in my tip jar here. And sometimes kids will email me, and as I get the questions, whenever I'm doing a live event, sometimes I'll just like answer questions. But if there are any questions that the kids have or the teachers have, I'm happy to answer them. The sequel, 3 Keys, is also coming out in September, so you can keep following the journey of Mia and her friends if that's something that you want to do.
Yes, definitely.
So I know for me, I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Kenneth. I don't know what happened. I had this question I was going to ask, and then it just, I know what I was going to say. One thing I loved about Front Desk is sometimes with the intermediate Sequoyah, it gets into such mature themes that people want to bring the books down to the elementary area, they just can't. And I love the fact that I've seen this book in so many elementaries that they have felt comfortable enough to bring this book down. And I just love that, because so many of the books that end up on our intermediate list just aren't right for that age group. So I love the fact that it's a safe book for so many different ages, and it can be enjoyable to so many different grade levels. And so I just love that about your book.
Absolutely. I mean, I have received fan mail from anyone who's like, 7 to like 99, literally. And it's been really interesting seeing everybody connecting to the different elements of Front Desk. I mean, kids obviously love the fact that she's running a motel, and that's so exciting. And everybody wants to, have that fantasy of like, oh, what if I stepped into the shoes of, a sales clerk or somebody who's doing this really interesting job for a day. And so you get to live that sort of experience and have that window. At the same time, there are themes in here that, older kids can totally understand and pick up on. Themes of, poverty and discrimination and, hardship. And like, we as a nation are going through hard times right now. So this book has a lot of themes that I think a lot of kids and adults can learn from and carry with them.
Hey.
Hi.
I just wanted to let you know your book was one in a stack I had, and my daughter picked it up and read it, and she's like, oh, Mom, you've got to read this. And so, of course, I did. And so I was really excited. I've been really excited about promoting this book. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. This was a book that was acquired for very little money. It wasn't a book that had any marketing really. Like it was just a small, quiet book. But because people, for some reason, really responded to it, you know, it has become a book that is beloved, and it's because of people like you. So thank you so much.
Well, I love that it was on the World Read Aloud list. Having got tremendous response from that, with her being with the Asian background and watching as students from around the world connect with this book. So thank you so much for writing it. It's just a beautiful story. And is it partly your story?
Yes, it's very much based on my life. When I was a kid, I was born in China and came over to the US when I was 6 years old. And my parents worked in several motels. We worked in 3 different motels. And, you know, there were always times where I had to help out at the front desk because the nature of a motel, there's so many things happening. My parents could barely keep up with just cleaning the rooms. And so I definitely took it upon myself to take that job very seriously. And, you know, it wasn't easy. Like at first, it was really hard. Yeah, I remember every day trying to get people to try to listen to me, even though I was like 8 or 9 or 10, and people just did not want to, you know, have to deal with a kid. Like they did not want to have to hand this kid their ID or their credit card or something. And it was really challenging to get adults to give you money. But then it was also like so much fun, and I had a lot of fun with the weeklies. And, you know, I had a lot of fun as a kid just running around this motel. And I remember my favorite part was always changing the vending machine, because I got to take all the quarters out. And it was the most magical thing as a kid, just like just taking the quarters out and putting these new sodas in. It was so amazing.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I have to tell you, it was kind of interesting. My school where I'm located is like in the middle of all these highways. There's literally 5 motels around our school. And we have a large population of immigrants, both from Myanmar and from Mexico and South America as well. So my kids were just like, okay, I can really relate. And I can really relate because some of them were actually living in those motels because they're waiting on a place to live.
Right.
You know, and things like that. So they were like, this, look around. This is what it's like in a motel. And the fact that there were so many around, there was that one part in the book where she drives around or walks around and sees another motel. I'm like, okay, see, we're right here. It's the same thing right here. So
that's so funny.
It was just something that they could relate to on more than one level. And I was really glad. I enjoyed the book myself. It was pretty good, I thought.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I didn't know anybody else who lived in a motel. And so I kept that a secret because I was really ashamed of it. I thought, you know, it was not normal because nobody else seemed to do that. So I thought that seemed to be very not normal, and therefore it was something that I ought to keep a secret. And it turns out, like, I actually recently went back to my elementary school, and my teacher or the people there, they weren't my teachers, but they're the teachers there now. And they were telling me, in fact, so many kids lived in the motels near the school. And I was like, what? You know, nobody ever told me this. And so I kept it a secret, and everybody else kept it a secret. And so what I really want to do with Front Desk is just to show kids all the different types of, you know, ways we live. And so more kids can see themselves represented in a book, and that they don't feel like they're not normal, because, you know, we have all different experiences in this nation.
So, hi, Kelly and Jennifer. And
sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Sorry. I'm so excited that you're here because this has been probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far. I just absolutely loved it, and I was so thrilled that you were here today. So thank you for that. And I also love how many different themes you put in there. I think it's so important for kids to hear this story of Mia having to try these new things. And I recommended it to so many kids at my school, and every one of them came back and said, do you have another book like this one? So they're going to be so excited to read Three Keys when it comes out. So thank you for writing this. Wonderful,
Thank
wonderful
you
book.
so much. Yeah, I wrote it originally for my son. You know, I wanted him to have a book that he would be able to read, that was easy to read, that was accessible, but that was important. And it was important for him to know how I grew up, because it's not the way he's growing up. So I wrote it as a summer project to get him to read, because he wasn't reading. And I remember he was like 8 or 9 at the time, and he just wasn't reading. It was really hard to get him to read. So those short chapters, you know, were so important for him. And the fact that the story was like, it's like fast paced, like things are happening all the time to Mia. So it was a great exercise. And at the end of the summer, he was like, oh, Mom, you should do something with that book. And he actually said, if you're not going to do something, I will. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, I'm going to make copies and sell them to my friends.
That's awesome.
And that's when I realized, I was like, I better do something with this or my own son's gonna steal it.
So Kelly, I have a student who his mom messaged me. They want to know if this is your first book other than your sequel. And of course you just answered, they were curious. They can only see your small picture. So they thought you, don't take offense, but they thought you were in high school. And I said, no, I'm sure she's not. And then of course you explained about your son. So that took care of that question. But do you have any other books besides these two is what they're wondering?
Yes, I have a YA coming out in a few weeks, actually. So this is Parachutes. It comes out on May 26th. And it's a really great story. It's a really nuanced story about Chinese students coming over from China now and what happens when they get here. These are kids coming over without their parents. Oftentimes they're going to private high schools and they're living with host families. So the story is about Claire, who's a girl from Shanghai. She comes over and she has to live with Danny in Danny's house. Danny's a Filipino-American girl. Her mom has decided to be the host family for Claire. And so these two don't really get along at first. It's kind of weird having to share your space with a stranger, but they eventually find themselves in very similar situations with things that they're facing at school. There's a lot of, there's a lot of what's currently happening weaved in, like lots of, discrimination and just terrible things that just happen. I mean, they happen, unfortunately, to a lot of people of color, but they do happen, they happen to like immigrants at every different stage, whether you're coming in the 90s with Mia or you're coming now. So that's a story that is coming out very soon, but it is for young adults.
So I just wanted to say, some people know this, I moonlight occasionally as a driver's ed instructor. And this past year, I was driving here in Mustang, and I was driving a young lady, and this is before I had listened to your book, which I ended up listening on audio. But I was driving a young lady, and we started talking, and her parents own this little, they own this little motel that's in the middle of Mustang. And so as soon as, we talked about the whole experience, but I was so excited. I told her about your book, in fact. I was like, there's a book on the Sequoyah list. Unfortunately, she was in high school. She didn't know what the Sequoyah was. That was maybe bad. I told her all about it, but I told her she needed to go and look at that book. And it was just so fun as I was listening to the book, I was kind of, because I just driven with this young lady, I was kind of picturing her, in the book and imagining her being the one that's doing all this. Yeah. So it was kind of fun. For me. So
that's so cute. And I have a story. Like, I actually went back to one of the motels we managed, and I went back and I actually found the new managers, and there are new managers now there. And one of the new managers, it's an Indian American family that manages it now. And then his daughter happened to be there, and his daughter also grew up in the same motel that I grew up in. And it was so sweet. We were like talking about what it was like growing up. She didn't help at the front desk as much because her parents kind of wanted to keep that under control by themselves instead of having their kid do it, which is understandable. But this was right before front desk came out, and I should have told her there was a book coming out about it, but I was kind of like shy and I just didn't want to tell her. But I always remember meeting her and just going, wow, you know, we oddly enough shared the same room and the amazing things that happened. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this family, they own it and they live in it. So she
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she lived in the, matter of fact, when I dropped her off at that little tiny motel that's right there in the middle of Mustang. So
that is so cute. That's so wonderful. That's really cool.
Kelly, it's difficult imagining you being shy because Mia is not shy at all.
Well, I've gotten better. I mean, I'm like my first event as an author, I think I like burst into tears or something. So I've gotten better. I've really gotten better. No, it was because it was a librarian event, and I just like I owe my whole life to like librarians, and so it was ALSC, A-L-S-C, or it was like a librarian event, and I just kind of like, I was so moved that there were so many librarians that I just burst into tears. So I've gotten a lot better, but in the early days when I was talking about front desk, you know, it took a lot of courage to be able to talk openly about this part of my life that I had kept so secret for so long because I was always worried that people were going to think that I was strange. And to see that, in fact, there's nothing strange about it, and people seem to love that story so much. It's been a really like validating experience.
That's great. I just barely finished it as we started this afternoon. Well, the Brown Brothers told us you were coming, and I don't read books this fast, but I read it in about 4 days. So fantastic. I knew right off I was going to like it because I too was spent my first 10 years only about 5 miles from Disneyland, and I will remember those little motels that dotted all around the place.
Yeah.
Of course, I grew up about 40 years before you did, but thank you so much. It's a delightful. There's a number of authors that write school-based stories, but I think we have a new master in our midst here. Thank you so much.
I thank you so much. It's really encouraging to hear. You know, it doesn't matter like how many books you've written. You always, as an author, you always have those moments of doubt. With every new book, you're like, do I know how to do this? Like, can I do this? And I guarantee you, there's a point at every book when you're like, I can't do this. When you just feel like, I cannot get through this book. This book is going to kill me. I cannot do it. I don't know how to do it. I should just give up now. And so it's wonderful to have these conversations and just remind yourself, like, yes, you know, you can do this, and you've gotten to the finish line before, and it's going to be okay. So thank you so much.
Now, Kelly, we do have some students that are watching on YouTube live right now. Is there anything that when you go to school visits or when you have a chance to talk with students, is there just one main message that you like to share with them about life or reading or writing?
Yeah. The main message I always share with kids, and I sign every book inside with this line, it's a line that Lupe says, which is, you can't win if you don't play. And that served me really well in my life. You know, there's so many things that I never thought I'd be able to accomplish, but if you don't try, you can't do it. So you just got to go for it. I mean, I never thought I would be here winning this award for front desk. I would never thought that so many people would like this book. And I never really thought that I could make a career out of this. But then I tried. And if you don't try, you know, you can't win. So always remember that. You can't win if you don't play.
I just want to say that I really hope that you'll be able to come in a year to accept the award at the Oklahoma Library Association. And I know that there's lots of people in here that while you're in town would love to have you come and visit their school. And so if we can ever help you with that, if you're doing school visits, please let us know, because I just know everybody would love to have you at their school. So
I would love to see everybody post-COVID. I'm just hoping that we can get to that point again where we can give each other a hug, that, you know, we can be in the same room. I mean, it's really hard to imagine now, but I mean, I'm sure we will get there very quickly as a nation, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys. And thank you in person. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I mean, I couldn't have gotten here without librarians in my life, because my parents they didn't know English. Like, they barely knew any of the things that I needed help with for school, or what to read or anything. And so I'm really only here because librarians that I met in my school libraries, in my community, took it upon themselves to help me and encourage me. And they said, you know, we see something in you. So thank you so much for the amazing work you guys are doing. I'm so grateful. And I really hope that we can just come together as a community, get through this difficult patch, and we'll be absolutely stronger on the other end.
Well, congratulations again. I have a copy of Front Desk I'd like to give away, and here is the question that I've come up with. What did Kelly show us at one point during our talk that is also on the cover of the book? Type it into the chat. If you've won a bunch of prizes, maybe, you know, type slower and let somebody else win. We've had some people win a lot of prizes because they know all the answers.
That's so
Not
cute.
the front desk. It's a tip jar. Oh, Janet got the tip jar.
Yay!
And Kelly held
I have
one.
one.
All right, so that's for Janet. So unless
Thank
anyone else
you.
has a last comment or question, anybody? Okay, well, Kelly, thank you for giving us part of your Friday evening. And again, congratulations on winning the Sequoyah and being so talented and sharing with us. You've got a lot of fans here in Oklahoma, and we hope to
Thank
see
you
you
so
here.
much.
Thank
Thank you so much, guys. I love you guys.
Tell
Keep
your
up the
son
great
thank
work.
you for making sure you published the book.
I will tell him that. And you know, he's now like a teenager practically. He's 12 going on 13, and so he's all sort of difficult now. But I will tell him that, and I will thank him and you guys so much for giving me this opportunity.
All right, thank you. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay well. Bye. Bye.
That was amazing.